5 years ago, at the height of the financial crisis, Wall Street megabanks were on the verge of collapse. Because they had grown so large and because they were so interconnected, their collapse would have brought the entire economy down with them and tragically wiped out the savings and the pensions of millions of Americans. It's not these Americans who are responsible for the financial crisis. And unlike Wall Street, they did not partake in risky practices that put our economy on the brink. Yet, American taxpayers had to bail out these Wall Street megabanks. While no one wants to see another bailout, I believe Congress still hasn't acted to end too big to fail once and for all, until today. Today, I'm introducing legislation that will prevent a Wall Street megabank from becoming so large that its downfall could be our economy's downfall. Banking wasn't always this way. For decades, banks of all sizes made loans to small businesses. They helped students finance a college education. They provided families with the resources to become homeowners. Yet, as our country has become more interconnected, we've seen our financial sector, in far too many examples, move from Main Street to Wall Street. Between 1990 and 2007, some 37 financial giants merged into just 10 massive and complex operations. By 2009, despite the recession, the top 6 banks had grown from less than 20% of US GDP to more than 60%, from less than 20 to more than 60% of GDP in fewer than 15 years. Did we learn our lesson after taxpayers had to bail out the megabanks in 2008? Well, since then, our banking industry has become even more, not less, consolidated. 10 large financial institutions merged into just 4. These 4 behemoths are nearly $2 trillion. That's $2,000 billion larger than they were the last time we had determined that they were too big to fail. This growth didn't come from innovative new products or services that helped local communities around Ohio prosper. It was built on the perception that these banks aren't just backed by their investors, they're also, unfortunately, backed by every American taxpayer. The market knows that the government won't allow these big banks to fail. And since they won't fail, they make riskier investments. They lend out much more money at a lower rate than regional banks and Main Street banks and credit unions. We can't afford to have a financial system that rewards corporation size over customer service. My colleague, Senator Vitter, a Republican from Louisiana, and I have introduced common sense, bipartisan legislation to ensure that even the biggest banks have proper capital reserves, enough reserves to back up their all too often risky practices so taxpayers don't have to back them up. Our proposal sets reasonable capital standards depending on the size and the complexity of the institution. If you're a bank with more than $400 billion in assets, you would need to have at least 15% of capital reserves to back up your lending. If you're a mid-size or regional bank, you need to have at least 8% in reserves to back up your lending. We'll also curtail the expansion of the government safety net by limiting taxpayer support to traditional banking operations, like accepting deposits and not spin-off operations like insurance and derivatives and securities. If megabanks want to be large and complex, that's their choice, but taxpayers should not have to subsidize their risk-taking. If big banks fail, their executives and their investors then should pay the price. American mechanics, American nurses, and American teachers shouldn't have to share in that burden. That may be bad news for a few megabanks, but it's good news for America's banking system, it's good news for an American economy, and it's good news for our nation's families. Thank you very much.